Today, we welcome the Sounds of Ojibwe with Asiginaak-Negamojig. Listen and sing along with the Blackbird Singers to learn the sounds of Anishinaabemowin, led by Stacie Sheldon, Ojibwe language advocate and co-founder and creator of Ojibwe.net, and author of Bebikaan-ezhiwebiziwinan Nimkii, The Adventures of Nimkii. Please help me welcome the Sounds of Ojibwe.
Bonjour. You guys can say bonjour back to me. That means hello. And then another way to say hello is Ani. It sounds good. You guys sound good. So I want to say thank you, miigwech, to Tamara and the Ann Arbor Library for having us back for the show. Excuse me while I situate myself a little bit. So our languages are embedded in everything that we do, in the way that we live our lives, in the way that we talk, and in our beliefs. And today we're going to share some about our language, Ojibwe. We're going to share some songs and have you sing some songs with us, hopefully. And at the end, there will be time for us to answer any questions that you guys have about Ojibwe language. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to have the group introduce themselves. So Stacie Sheldon Indigenous, I am named Stacie Sheldon. Chitwa Dawegekwe Indigu, I am called by them, all of creation, Chitwa Dawegekwe. That translates as honor beat woman. Those strong accent beats, I'm named after those accent beats. Indibendagos Bawoting Ojibwe, I'm a member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. Bawoting is the traditional name for Sault Ste. Marie. Ajijak Indodam, I'm from the Crane clan. Sheboygan, Michigan, in Donjaba. I'm originally from Sheboygan, Michigan, which is up at the Straits of Mackinac. And Ga Bagushkaning Ninda. I live in Ann Arbor today. The traditional name for Ann Arbor is Ga Bagushkaning, which translates as the place of the pummeling. and that's because of the mills that used to be here. Yeah, this is what you guys use.
Ani Buju.
You just put it close to your mouth.
Just put it really close. Okay, got it. Miigwech, Stacie. Ani Buju, Andrea, Anishinaabemowin, Asiginaak First Nation, Nimkii, Rochester, Ndonjaba, Gabigoshkani, Ninda. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. I belong to Asiginaak First Nation. I grew up in the Rochester area, and I live in Ann Arbor now.
Buju ani, Selena Smith, Indigenous, Utpamsak Metikwe, Indau, Amisquachu Esquekun, Nananjaba, Gabigoshkining, Ninda. So, hi everyone, my name is Selena Smith. I'm Utpamsak Métis. I'm originally from Edmonton, Alberta. I give you the the traditional name there, which translates to Beaver Hills House, and I live in Ann Arbor now.
Miigwech. Ani Janessa Esquible Indishnikas, ZB Indigo. So my English name is Janessa Esquible. My Anishinaabe name is ZB, which means river. Wawiyatanang Nindojaba. So I'm originally from Detroit. Bekejuanang Nindibagos. I'm a citizen of Bekejuanang First Nation, which is where means roughly where the waters divide. It's also known as Wapo Island First Nation. Asiginaak-Negamojig, I'm Crane Clan, and Livonia Inda. I currently live in Livonia.
Miigwech. Ani Buju, Jasmine Indigenous, Anishinaabemowin, Dearborn, Inda, Ypsilanti, Michigan, and Ndonjaba. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I am a descendant. I grew up in Ypsilanti, and I currently live in Dearborn.
Buju. Sagi Makwe Indigenous Cake and Ganing Indujnaba Makwen Dodum. My name's Aurora White. I'm from the Blackbird Singers band, which is located in the Upper Peninsula, and I'm Bear Clan.
Ani Ojibwe Indigenous Ajijak and Dodum Bawating Nimkii Lansing and Dunjaba Ypsilanti or Ipsy Inda. I'm Ojibwe and I'm Crane Clan from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, and I'm from Lansing, Michigan, but I live in Ypsilanti.
Anishna, what's up? Natalie Indigenous, Bawating Nindonjaba, Batchwana First Nation, Nimkii, Whitmore Lake, Ninda. I'm originally from the place of the Rapids, which was later renamed Sault Ste. Marie by the French, Ontario side, and I'm affiliated with Batchwana First Nation, and I now live in Whitmore Lake, Michigan.
Edna Indigenous, Bawating Nindonjaba, Batchwana First Nation, Nimkii, Whitmore Lake, Ninda. My name is Edna, and I'm super happy to be here.
Ani Buju, Rebecca Indigenous, Bawating Ojibwe, Nimkii, Ajijak and Dodum, Whitmore Lake, Inda. My name is Rebecca. I'm also Sault Ste. Marie tribe, also Crane Clan. We've got a few of us from the same group, and I live in Whitmore Lake.
So Miigwech singers. So this is a traditional way that we introduce ourselves in our language, in Ojibwe. So when we introduce ourselves, we are telling and we're retelling our place in the world. And we're stating not just our names, but our connections to others and to place. So it's like this, like a circle that travels outward and recognizes our ties and how we're connected to others. And I included this image on this slide. This is a piece of birch bark. This is, I know you can't tell but from the picture, but this is a birch bark document. And it was carried by Chief Oshkabewis to Washington, D.C. in 1849, when Ojibwe leaders were petitioning the United States to adjust boundaries of a treaty that had been encroached upon. The image, it shows 7 Ojibwe chiefs by their clan symbols. This is how we signed treaties and how we sent messages of diplomacy. And the clans on here are Crane, Martin, Bear, Merman, and Bullhead. And you can see that there are those lines that are connecting their hearts and their brains or their minds to one another, and also to Lake Superior and to the smaller lakes that make up the watershed. And what these lines mean is that they are speaking from their hearts, and they are in agreement in one mind, which is how we will be speaking and singing for you guys today, from our hearts. As you heard in the introductions, many of us are Ojibwe. We do have some Choctaw folks and some Cherokee folks in our group, but predominantly Ojibwe. And the Ojibwe are one of the Three Fires Confederacy of three major groups of people. So the name Ojibwe probably comes from a term for our very distinctive footwear, which is the pucker-toed moccasin, which also is a word that you guys all know in Ojibwe. Moccasin is the Ojibwe word for shoe. And I put an example of what those look like on here. We're also called Chippewa, which is the English messing up the word for Ojibwe. Ojibwa, Chippewa. Then the Odawa and the Potawatomi. So our three nations share a common language, which we call Anishinaabemowin. And because of things that happened through history, some of what we'll talk about later, the Potawatomi language has become pretty different from how Ojibwe and Odawa speak today. But Anishinaabemowin is still the umbrella language, and we often refer to ourselves as Anishinaabe people. So you're going to hear an interchange of those words, Anishinaabe and Ojibwe. I created this map, Inwe Mazanaigin, a map of our sound, a few years ago, or it's getting to be quite a few years ago now, but it shows the current diaspora of Anishinaabe nations in the year 2025. So each of the teal dots on there is a Anishinaabe nation today. And the map has the names of our nations in Anishinaabemowin where possible. And that's because knowing one's place in the universe is to know one's name. And vice versa, knowing your name means to know your place in the universe. So names reveal the history of a place, and they give us a way to understand our relationships with things such as water and land and all forms of life. And we're going to talk about those relationships today. You can see that we're concentrated mostly around the Great Lakes watershed, it's called the Great Lakes Basin. That's the part that's in black. And on the real map on Ojibwe.net, you can click on the nations and you can zoom in and see more about them. The Ojibwe word for town is Odena, and that word implies a confluence or an exchange, which is a little different than the idea of a town that's built up. The word contains Ode, which means heart. So many of the most diverse urban centers today are located in bays and along shorelines or at the confluence of rivers. And just looking at this map, in our view of the Great Lakes area, you can see, if you know your geography, you can see Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan and Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. But before it was called Sault Ste. Marie, like Natalie and I shared, it was called Bawating, the place of the rapids. We can also see Wawayatanong, which Janessa mentioned, which means a place where one goes around or where the water whirls around, which is now called Detroit. And you can still see whirlpools in the Detroit River today, although not as many since they made the river deeper. We can also see Jigagong, now known as Chicago. It was named by us for the skunk cabbage that grew there, which has a strong smell in common with the skunk, the shigak. And then Milwaukee, Minowaki, the good land. That was called that until the 1800s when the spelling was changed to Milwaukee. So all of this water, the Great Lakes, we called it Michigame, the vast sea. And for thousands of years, these lakes were known to us as Michigame. We didn't have an individual name for each of the Great Lakes. They were understood as a vast interconnected system called Michigame. And you can see by all of the teal dots how this came to be, and this is today, our ancestral home, right? This is the home of our culture, our people, and our language. So the Great Lakes teaches us connections. And we're going to sing a song that was written for the watershed, for the Great Lakes watershed. And this is a song that honors some of the important fish found in this place in the world. And it's not a song for the fishers or the fishermen. It's a song, as the writer Margaret said, for the fish, for the speckled muskies lurking, the ribbon-bodied eels, the deep-story sturgeons, the ones with whom we share the water. And these are the fish that sacrifice themselves so that people might eat. These are the ones who might have heard, "Gimme gwechigo, gi bagadizendoyan." Thank you for the sacrifice of yourselves. I have some artwork on here. This is by a Métis artist named Christy Belcourt, and the title of it is "The Fish Are Fasting for Knowledge from the Stars." And for thousands of years, indigenous people have known that fish go on vision quests at certain times of the year to gain knowledge for the people. They also stargaze and look through the great hole in the sky, in this case represented by an abandoned hole in the ice. And they do that to see the future and forecast information through it, through its flesh, for people to eat. So the wisdom that they carry is in their fat, and when the people eat it, they gain celestial information that reflects the sacred code on how to live on earth, right? The stars are a reflection of how to live on earth, and in this map, the fish are proudly carried in its very being. So the fish can teach us how to live by eating them, by watching them, by observing what they have to teach us. Here is another connection the language teaches us about something particular to this place in the world. So there's something in speech called a morpheme, which is a sound that has meaning. And the morpheme ga in Ojibwe is fun to think about. It has multiple meanings, so it's not always a one-for-one. But in this case, I want to see if we can identify all three of our relatives on this slide. And if we start with gawk, who knows what gawk is? You guys don't recognize gawk? Yep, porcupine. And what about gawandak? Anybody know what that is? Do you know? A pine tree. Does anybody happen to know what kind of pine tree? A spruce, a white spruce. Good job. And this is always the hard one, but we'll see. Does anybody recognize oga? Yes. Does anybody know what kind of fish oga is? A walleye. Who said that? Woohoo! You're one of a small group of people to get that right. Yeah, so the oga, the walleye, has that dorsal fin that's pretty distinctive. But if looking at these three animals, what do you guys think ga means? Spiky, right. So that dorsal fin, the needles or the spikes on the porcupine, and those long, thin needles on the white spruce. This is a really unique connection of meaning and sound that is specific to the Great Lakes watershed. This isn't true any place else in the world. Sometimes in Ojibwe, a word has a whole story behind it. For example, we have a story about a bird who had feathers of every color in the rainbow, bright, conspicuous, glorious feathers. He also had the most beautiful singing voice of all of the birds. It was enchanting. And all of the creatures on earth admired this bird, and the Anishinaabe people most of all. And the bird loved all the people back, right? But he loved the Anishinaabe people most of all. And one winter, it was brutally cold. And the people were suffering from the cold. And what food they could find was so frozen that they couldn't eat it. They had no fire, no way to cook food or to heat their lodges. And the bird pitied the people, and he resolved to help them. And so he flew up into the sky, higher and higher, and he wanted to approach the sun and bring back some of its warmth for the people. And he flew a long time. He flew for a long time until he was close enough to feel the heat of the sun. But soon it grew so hot that it started to singe his beautiful feathers. But he didn't turn back, and he didn't give up. He flew and flew until he did reach the sun, and his feathers were burned black, and his throat was seared by the heat. But he made it, and he retrieved the fire, and he brought it back to earth, and he gave it to the people. And now the people had something to cook their food and to warm their lodges, and they were so grateful. But the bird never recovered his former glory from his sacrificial ordeal. But he did live. And we call this bird Ondeg, which means he or she who changes in the light. In English, he is known as, who do you guys think? The crow. His feathers are as black as charcoal. His voice is rough and raspy. He's got that caw, caw. But when the sun shines on him, there's a hint of multiple colors in his dark feathers, right? A hint of his former glory. And when we speak Ojibwe, the word Ondek reminds us of this whole story. It's a story in a word. Also, by the way, Jasmine, who introduced herself, is responsible for a lot of the artwork up here, including this picture of Ondeg. So we talked about water, and water is one part of our cosmos, and the stars are another. For example, if we all think of the direction that is north, who knows which way north is right now? Yes, that way. A lot of us knew, some of us didn't. So Geweden is the word for north, and it has embedded in it the word for going home, which is Giwe. And in this part of the world, right here in the northern hemisphere, the idea of going home and going north are one and the same. So the star that tells you how to return is the home star, or the going home star, the north star, Giwedenong. So again, every place in the world has unique connections to language, and the language teaches us those connections. Who knows which constellation this is? I'm giving you guys a lot of quizzes. You think that's the Big Dipper? Orion. He's got that belt. So in Ojibwe, this constellation is not known as Orion. He's known as Bebikaan, or Winter Maker. He has a belt and arms reaching wide and swirling to bring in those cold winds and storms of winter. And that's just one story. In other Ojibwe stories, this set of stars is known as Misabe, which is the giant or Bigfoot. And in other communities, it's known as Nanabujuanong, Nanabuju star. So the Ojibwe culture is not monolithic, right? There's different communities that have different teachings and different words for things and so forth. And this set of stars is only big and visible in the northern hemisphere during the winter months. So when you go outside tonight, it being pretty much late October, you'll notice that Bebikaan is bigger than he was in the September or in August and June and July. And he's higher in the sky now. And soon he's going to be swirling those arms at us. And seeing this constellation and telling stories of it in wintertime reminds us of the changing of the weather and reminds us of our place in the world. The stars and the shifts in weather and light, those things tell us when winter's coming, right? And they also tell us when winter is over. In that time of the year when the days are getting warmer, but nights are still cold, the sap starts to run in the trees. And then it's time for what we call sugar bush. And sugar bush is where individuals and communities tap trees together to gather sap to make syrup and sugar. We consider sugar bush to be a gift after hardship, right? So after surviving the hunger and hardship of baboon or winter, maple sap is seen as one of the first sweet, nourishing gifts from the earth, and it restores strength after months of scarcity. Sugar bush is ceremony and gratitude. So maple sugar is traditionally honored with ceremony. Elders often describe it as a gift that's directly from the Creator, reminding us to give thanks for what sustains us. Sugar bush, like I said, is community work. So tapping trees and collecting sap, keeping those fires going, boiling it down, all that work is done together. And after a winter of endurance and reflection, sugar bush brings people outside again, out in the elements, working side by side, reinforcing those kinship ties and having a spirit of cooperation. Sugar bush is balanced too, right? So some stories tell that originally sap flowed as pure syrup. Syrup just used to come out of the trees. But it was made watery because people were becoming lazy and they were forgetting the value of hard work. It's an old story. Sugar bush is continuity in teaching. So maple season is also when children are learning from their families. They're learning the stories and the songs and the practices of making maple syrup and making sugar. They're carrying forward knowledge, just as their ancestors once did. And now we're going to sing a song for the maple sugar time. This is a song that we often sing in March or April in this time of the world, and with climate change, maybe a little bit of February sometimes too. That one's a fun song to sing. So we have shared how we lived and we still live today by the seasons in this watershed, in the Great Lakes watershed. And I hope you have thought to yourself, this language sounds beautiful. This way of seeing and being in the world sounds beautiful. Because now I want to talk about disruption. So disruption for the Anishinaabe people started in the 1600s, pretty long time ago here in this area, with the fur trade, and it continued on from there. So after the War of 1812, the United States adopted a worldview. I'm sure many of you have heard about this term, manifest destiny. And the United States began expanding west. And this painting by John Gast, it depicts the spirit and the attitude of this time period. I think it depicts it really well. So if you look at it closely, you'll see that the American Indians and the wild animals are fleeing, while civilization with that telegraph wire that she's stringing, and the farm animals and education, which is represented in the book that she's holding, those things are moving in. And during this time in American history, tribal diversity was very greatly reduced. During this time, those cities along the shores of the Great Lakes that we talked about, Wawayatanong, Bawating, Minnewaukee, those cities were given their new names. So this is an especially dark time in American history. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act. And this legalized the mass forced relocation of tribes in the United States. So nearly every tribe in the US experienced a loss of land. And so many people have heard about the Cherokee Trail of Tears, but most people don't know that almost every tribe in the United States experienced a similar relocation. Out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of the boarding school era? That's amazing. I think changes are happening. So in the late 1870s, the United States took what it considered actually a really enlightened approach to deal with its ongoing, ever-present Indian problem. So an Army captain named Richard Pratt, he conducted a social experiment with Apache prisoners of war. So he had the men shackled and sent to a camp in Florida, which was thousands of miles from where the Apache lived. He cut their hair, he put them in uniforms, forced them to learn English, and subjected them to really strict military protocols. And during his experiment, some of the men were severely traumatized, and some of them did commit suicide. However, most of the prisoners did learn English customs. They learned the English language, and it was considered a successful experiment. So using his experiment as a case study for success, Pratt then went to Congress, and he requested funding for the similar education of all American Indians, and his request was granted. So his motto, which became the policy of boarding schools, was kill the Indian, save the man. And by the year 1900, most American Indian children were taken from their families and transported to American Indian boarding schools. And generally speaking, they were taken great distances from their home. They were put into uniforms, just like the Apache, right? They had their hair cut. They were forced to act and speak as white people. And they were severely punished if they spoke in their native tongues. And many spent their entire childhood in the boarding school system, and they were too far away to visit family, so they often just went home as adults. So they were there as children. Many of them were, it was common to be malnourished, physically abused, sexually abused, and it's estimated that half of American Indian children did not survive the boarding schools. And now today, researchers, a lot of people have heard about Canada, which found the remains of 6,000 children in mass graves. The current estimate in the United States is that we have 40,000 children in those mass graves that have not been sent home yet. So here in the United States, the most well-known of the boarding schools is the Carlisle School in Pennsylvania, and many people have heard of the Carlisle School, and it's actually a historic site now that you can go visit. Here in Michigan, we had 8 boarding schools, and the largest, which is in the photo here, is in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which is just about 2 hours away from here. So obviously there's a lot more to learn about this than I can share today, but it is pretty heartbreaking. But it did happen, and it wasn't just a long time ago. So some of these schools remained open through the 1970s and the 1980s. There was a school in Harbor Springs, Michigan that didn't close until 1983. And we have generations of our people, right? What's the consequences of this? We have generations of our people who were sent away from their communities, who were punished if they spoke their language, and who suffered, and who didn't learn as children to love or to be loved, who didn't learn what a loving parent looks like. And you can imagine the consequences to the fluency of our language. So Henry Schoolcraft was an Indian agent and a prominent American here in Michigan. You probably recognize his name from Schoolcraft College and other landmarks. Many people don't know that he was married to an Ojibwe woman whose name was Bebikaan-ezhiwebiziwinan, or that translates as woman of the sound the stars make rushing through the sky. That's how she was known to her people. Her English name was Jane Johnston Schoolcraft, and she was born in the year 1800. And she wrote this poem after having to send her children, her young daughter and her young son, far east to go to boarding schools because her husband wanted them to be as assimilated as possible. She herself died pretty young, I think in Lonesome for her homeland, and we feel her heartbreak with these words that she wrote, and we have brought it back into a music space, like a song to be able to share with everybody. So boarding schools, land theft, treaty violations, and pressure, like Jane felt to assimilate, those things have consequences to language. For instance, our language is endangered. There were about 300 languages spoken just in the continental United States before European contact, and about 167 of those remain today. With COVID, we estimate that we lost about 20% of our fluent elders. And only 20 of these languages, or of those 167 languages, are expected to make it over the next 25 years. And we want Ojibwe to be one of those languages. Every person up here with me wants that. So our state bird in Michigan is, who knows the answer to that? Anybody know the state bird? The robin, right? It's the bird that heralds in springtime. But I think the chickadee should be our state bird. It stays with us all winter and it never leaves. And it reminds us that we can learn to survive. So on really especially frigid nights, chickadees lower their body temperatures to conserve energy. And their brains actually grow in the wintertime, which helps them to relocate thousands of seeds that they stored through the warmer months. You know, most of us can barely remember where we left our car keys, much less find thousands of seeds that we stored away earlier in the year. Chickadees also band together in flocks for warmth and protection, and they remind us of the strength that we can find in community and how to be resilient. So we are survivors like the chickadee, so we're going to sing one of our favorite songs about the chickadee for you.
Asiginaak-Negamojig, Asiginaabemowin, Wingash, Windamoyangedwa, Gashkijig, Gashkeyaking. Gitchiganeshi, Eagawanda, non dagizit, non tendamoyangedwa, Manido Kayang, Manido Yang. Asiginaak-Negamojig, Asiginaabemowin, Wingash, Windamoyangedwa, Gashkijig, Gashkeyaking. Gitchiganeshi, Eagawanda, non dagazit, non tendamoyangedwa, Manido Kayang, Manido Yang. Asiginaak-Negamojig, Asiginaabemowin, Wingash, Windamoyangedwa, Gashkijig, Gashkeyaking. Gitchiganeshi, Eagawanda, non dagazit, non tendamoyangedwa, Manido Kayang, Manido Yang. Asiginaak-Negamojig, Asiginaabemowin, Wingash, Windamoyangedwa, Gashkijig, Gashkeyaking. Gitchiganeshi, Eagawanda, non dagazit, non tendamoyangedwa, Manido Kayang, Manido Yang.
We love those survivor chickadees, right? They teach us that we can live Bebikaan-ezhiwebiziwinan, the good life, a life that our ancestors dreamed for us. So now it's time for you guys to say chickadee. So I know you guys can do this. You just got to get a little rhythm going. So I'm going to say the pieces here, and you guys repeat after me. So gidja, gidja, ga, ne, shi. 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 You guys sound good. Good job on that nishin. So how do we save our language? By using it, by creating with it, by talking about it and talking in it, by singing in it. And earlier I said, our languages are embedded in everything that we do, not just our language, everybody's language, right? In the way that we live our lives, in the way that we talk, and in our beliefs. And the Ojibwe language teaches us a lot of beautiful things about how to live in the world and how to live with one another. And we know that something very special would be lost if our language was to be lost. But like the chickadee, we are survivors. We are resilient. Maybe our brains don't expand in the winter, but there you go. There are so many people doing great work. Just recently, a version of Star Wars was released in Ojibwe, which is exciting. There are more and more books that are bilingual or even just monolingual in Ojibwe. There's Ojibwe on TikTok. We've been invited here today, which is important to us. For myself, I work in tech, so I have found ways to contribute to language revitalization in the digital realm, as well as in the physical realm. So back in 2006, which some people weren't born then, but I started Ojibwe.net with my friend Margaret, and we work with communities, organizations, we work with educators, and people who want to use the language. In addition to, we provide lessons, recordings of fluent elders, and songs and other materials. So it has been my life's work to work on this website. These are the ones who are working together. This is our current team. We started working with Alphonse Pitawankwit in our early days. So Alphonse is a fluent speaker from Wikwemikong Unceded First Nation in Ontario, and he teaches Ojibwe at the University of Michigan. And then Megan, who's not here today, she wasn't feeling well, but she's been on the team for about 2 years. She is similar to me and works in human-centered design, a user experience. And I just want to share about a couple of our projects. The first one I have on here is just a personal favorite. This is a fish poster project. So the Grand Portage Band of Chippewa Indians, which is in northern Minnesota, they wanted to make a poster for the tribal members that had the fish common to Grand Portage with the words of the fish in Ojibwe, and then a QR code where you could scan the poster so you could hear how to say the names of the fish. So I built that for them, and then I thought, well, I want the fish of my hometown in Sheboygan. So I made a Sheboygan edition, and actually some folks in Sheboygan installed the fish poster on the Children's Trail in Sheboygan, Michigan. And if you ever go to Sheboygan, the Children's Trail is probably, it's got to be one of the best out there. It's pretty amazing. It follows the Sheboygan River. But there are fun language lessons in the names of the fish. So Name, which looks like name, so N-A-M-E, Name, that appears in the names of multiple fish. And so I was really curious, what does Name mean? Why is it in the names of so many fish? Turns out it means to be longer than you are wide, which is great, right? Something that we all wish for. And then a Atikamekw, the whitefish, that has a dorsal fin that looks like the tine of an antler or the tine of a fork, and the antler of a caribou, the atik. So it's named after the caribou. It's the caribou fish. The Majimegoze, the salmon, and the Majimegozants, the brook trout, show that those words being the same word, one of them just has an ants at the end, means that the brook trout is thought of as a small salmon. And then one of my favorites here is the Mashkinoje, which is the muskie or the muskellunge, and the Ginoje, the pike. Those fish look similar to one another. One's bigger, but both of their names referenced having a long snout. So the Ginoje means to have a long snout. But the muskie is the Mashkinoje, which means it's also ugly. And then imagine walking, if you haven't been to Uma recently, but imagine walking into an art museum and seeing Gadaya Anishinaabe-Waking. You are on Anishinaabe land, written in these huge letters, with an opportunity to listen online while you stare up at these things. And you can right now at the University of Michigan Museum of Art. They have an exhibit about the history and the future of Sheboyganing Burt Lake Band, which is the area where I grew up. I'm not Burt Lake Band, but I grew up in Sheboygan. So the exhibit has a 40-foot high wall that tells the story of how in October of 1900, the Sheboygan County Sheriff and some of his deputies burned down the homes of all the Burt Lake Band members, burned them out of their homes and off their land. And for this exhibit, you can, our team, Ojibwe.net, translated the art details into Ojibwe and created QR codes. So when you scan them, you can hear the text in Ojibwe. in which, it helps us to bring the language into this physical space in both the text and also the sound. This exhibit is special to me, right, because it's about the place where I grew up. And it's not just about the history of what happened. It's called Future Cache. So it's about the future of the Burt Lake Band. And one of my favorite pieces, which you can kind of see under the Gedaya there, is called I'll Cut a Hole. And it features a message that's on a sign at St. Mary's Cemetery in Brutus, Michigan, which is near the tribal headquarters. And it says, Widokawashin, we nibwakwayan dash, ani jawenamagwa gakina. Give me knowledge so I may have kindness for all. And I just think that's a pretty extraordinary message, considering what happened there. Now, the exhibit does close next month, so if you haven't made it there, get out there soon. And then a few years ago, I wrote a book about my dog, Nimkii. And Nimkii was one of those cool, once-in-a-lifetime dogs, and we had great times together. And the story is organized by seasons, and it's bilingual, so it's in Ojibwe and English. It's illustrated. We don't have a ton of bilingual or monolingual books, right? And we need them. And I definitely never aspired to be an author. I'm more along the lines of stay up late reading mystery novels kind of person. But I have learned a lot about reading with children, with my young relatives, and I tried to use those experiences to make the book engaging to read. And you can see, I think the illustrations are especially beautiful. They were done by Rachel Butson, who is a Haudenosaunee woman who lives in Michigan. She's our traditional enemy, but we were able to work together on this book. Ojibwe and Haudenosaunee are traditional enemies. And I wanted to share with you one of my favorite parts of the book. This is the Starry Night double page spread, which I did somehow manage to squeeze on here. And I'm going to read these pages. It says, Nimkii o mawindan, gana wabma anangan bibung. Nimkii likes to look at the stars in winter. O wabman wenabuju anangan, gaye maingan anangan. She sees the Wenabuju constellation and the wolf constellation. Nimkii Nagamo, pas kakano said, agashin anangans. She sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Giraduwendan na Nagamoyan, do you want to sing? I did create a place for this book on Ojibwe.net where you can get coloring pages. You can learn how to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. You can watch a video on how the Nimkii book was illustrated. You can listen to the whole book being read in Ojibwe. So if you want to study up before you read it to your kids, you can do that. It may be 8 or 9 years ago, a lot of my Ojibwe friends moved away from Ann Arbor. And we had a drum circle at that time, and it fizzled out. And for a bunch of years, then I just worked on Ojibwe.net and worked on the language. But I was lonely for Ojibwe community, right? I'm far from home. I'm far from Sheboygan. And one day in September, 2 years ago now, I was reading this book that you see referenced here. And I came across this quote, and it says, as we deepen revitalization, we should endeavor to use our tribal languages more than we use English. Then we will be thinking in our indigenous mindset the majority of the time. And this just hit me at the right time, as some things do. And I decided I called together the new and the old Ojibwe friends in my life, and I started a language nest aimed at using and practicing Ojibwe language. And out of that emerged a women's hand drum group, Asiginaak-Negamojig. This is our logo on here. And we've been pretty busy. So we've been sharing our language at schools, museums, libraries. We had a show at the Ark earlier this year, which was exciting for us. We recently sang at the DIA as part of the exhibit there, which I'll mention in a minute. But we call our nest Asiginaak-Negamojig, which means the blackbird nest, right? So our favorite kind of fierce nest protectors are those red-winged blackbirds with their very distinctive voices. They are our namesake, and they immediately, when you hear the call of a blackbird, I think most of us think of summer and cattails and marshes and ducking so you don't get hit in the head by one of them. They're very fiercely protective of their nests. as we are of ours. Now I'm going to invite each of the Blackbird Singers to share a few words with you about what this work means to them, whether that's about singing itself, singing in Ojibwe, or the way that this practice connects them to, in their hearts, their family, or their spirit. And I know they're nervous, so give them some good cheers.
We're not nervous. What are you talking about? Well, first thing that comes to my heart and mind today is how thankful I am that Stacie did reach out to us and bring this lovely community together. When I sing with these ladies and our community, it usually brings me some tears here and there and just makes my heart feel so happy, especially thankful. It's a little bit easier for me. Sometimes I can't just read Ojibwe like off the page, but getting a chance to sing it and then kind of use that as a tool to also learn the language and share it with my kids and little ones, little relatives in my community and with my students on campus is really special to me. So I can't thank Stacie enough, Miigwech, for bringing us all together all the time.
I feel similarly as Andrea. I'm very grateful to Stacie for all the work she puts in to bring us together. The community has been super important. I would never sing in front of people. And so there's something different about doing it with this group. And I'm also grateful to get a chance to learn to bring the drum in, because that's something since childhood I've been drawn to, and so it's nice to get that chance. And I think the songs really help parts of the language stick, and the language also reflects how we as Indigenous people think about the world, and I think that's been a really helpful connection, another reason to keep the language alive and learn it.
Miigwech. To everyone for coming today, and Stacie for bringing me in as a part of this group, and Asiginaak Singers for embracing me. We talked a little bit about the residential schools earlier, and I have grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts and uncles who were all impacted, and from that, a lot of the language in our family was lost, and so being able to be a part of this group and sing and drum, I've been learning a lot more of the language through singing, which I'm really appreciative for. My son too, he'll just go around the house randomly singing different songs, and it's like, come on, let's sing and let's drum, and he's really excited too, and that empowers me and makes me feel like I'm carrying on the wishes and the language and the teachings of my ancestors, and for that I'm really grateful to be a part of this group. And my Nokomis, my gram, gifted me with this drum years ago, and I really didn't use it too much. Some of our family, we sing songs, but they're not really hand drummers, and so now I met Stacie not too long ago, and she invited me to this group and have the opportunity to finally use this, and I feel honored to be a part of this amazing Anishinaabemowin group.
I'm not nervous at all. I consider myself very lucky. When Stacie started this group, I was a little nervous. I'm still always a little nervous, but it's brought me to a place where I've gotten to meet such amazing women, both in this group and outside of this group, and it's been not only a big confidence booster, but it's just creating connections that last, connections that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I can't thank her enough. Miigwech.
This wasn't supposed to be thanking Stacie. So.
Miigwech, Stacie. I'm also just so thankful to be a part of this group. I feel like it's about connection and community, and also, as they all said, like confidence as well. And for me, it's learning the language and being able to go home and listen to ceremonial songs from my community and understand what they're actually saying and understanding the deeper meaning behind them. So, Chimagwich.
I feel like singing heals my soul. It makes me happy, and it makes me happy to sing with all these women. And I learned so much from them, whether it's like sewing or cooking or life experiences. It's just amazing. And like Selena, I wouldn't be singing in front of people, but the singing together, I don't know, it's just uplifting, and I really appreciate you all coming to listen, and I hope you sing these songs on Ojibwe.net too. And thank you, Stacie.
So I'm not a singer. I know I was going to share one story, but I have a different story to share. So my son, who's not here, he said, "Wow, Mom, you sound really good singing when the music's up really loud and I can't really hear you." So coming into this group and singing with these women, I was like, I'm not a singer. But this group, all of you women, Anishinaabemowin, fill me up. And not just with our traditional food when we have ceremony, which is absolutely wonderful, and I look forward to it. But I feel full, and I feel like sometimes Adam's like, "When's Nest again? You need to get back there because you need that, that fuel from all of you." So, thank you so much, miigwech. No, gintam, Edna. Just say thank you, miigwech. Just say miigwech. You sure? Say whatever.
I don't know what to say.
You say miigwech.
Miigwech.
Like everyone else, Chimagwech, to Stacie and to everyone who extended invitations beyond people they knew and let some new people in to continue to grow and expand the network and our relations, which has been really, truly wonderful. I also would like to say Chimagwech to all of you for coming out. One of my favorite things about performing is actually watching the audience. So thank you for keeping me entertained. I absolutely love watching people light up at different parts. I love when you have to practice singing Gitchi Gitchi Ganeshi. It's really enjoyable to hear the language said back to us. The other thing I would say about Nest, I tried to learn the language on my own years ago. And it's very hard to stay in your own space and try and just learn things on your own. Coming into community makes everything more real. It makes it alive. And you'll also notice we giggle a lot, which makes going to what would have been a class, not a class. It's going to community and spending time with friends and sharing our time and our skills and our knowledge with one another. And it's been one of the best learning environments I've ever encountered. So, Chimagwech.
Great job, ladies. They're not here today, but I think we have four or five 4-year-olds. I don't know why they're all 4, but there are all these 4-year-olds. By the way, these ladies gifted me this skirt. It depicts a Asiginaak on there. And I did want to say, everybody talked about, right, this connection that the language gives to them in their personal lives, some of them to their families, and some of them to feel enriched or to bring to ceremony and so forth. And in Ojibwe culture, the road, the Bebikaan, is a metaphor for life. And the wood burnings on the right part of the page here are from a drum that I made for somebody. And they show the life of an oak tree from acorn to maturity. And life like the tree experiences, is a series of changes, right? We begin as infants, we become children, we become sentient beings, then we're adults, and sometimes we're parents. And each path is different, but we all travel the same road. We all travel that same Mikan. And if the road is a metaphor for life, which I think it's a good one, it's also a metaphor for our choices. So the top left shows this is a common Ojibwe representation of our life path, and it kind of looks like a bird went dancing. But you can see that this path is represented with 7 lines, and it's not a straight path, right? So our lives are not linear. We shift directions, we make mistakes, and we start again. We're like, maybe I should go to school for this instead, or maybe this job would be better for my career. Maybe I shouldn't have married him, right? We can't go backwards, but we can change. And our choices shape who we are. And to be honest with ourselves, we have to look back and remember the connections that define us. In Ojibwe, the words for remembering and finding and knowing are really closely linked. So to know myself as an Ojibwe person, I must know my language. I must know my ancestors. I must know my relatives, not just my human relatives, but all my relatives. And we are standing here today because of countless Mikanan, countless roads and choices and lives that brought us to this moment, right? That's true for all of us. And so, of course, we have a song about remembering. This song reminds me to be thankful for what we have created together, all these ladies, for the community we have where we've made space for Ojibwe and for being in our indigenous mindset. And now I would say Gintam. That means your turn. So it's time for you all to help us again once more to bring Ojibwe language into this space. So we want you to learn and sing this song about Mother Earth for us. This was a song that was written for healing. And we're going to start with learning 2 words. And both of these words translate as Mother Earth. And like I said earlier, different communities have different ways of saying Mother Earth. There's not just one right way. So I always like to highlight the variety that's in Ojibwe communities. So we're going to start here. This is shka, ka, mikwe. 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 Nishin. Ma, zi, ka, mikwe. Maze, ka, mikwe. Mazika, mikwe. Mazika, mikwe. Shka, ka, mikwe. Mazika, mikwe. Shka, ka, mikwe. Mazika, mikwe. Shka, ka, mikwe. Mazika, mikwe. Nishin, you guys are ready to sing this song with us. We're looking forward to this. I saw and heard some people singing. You guys did a good job. That was fun for us to hear. So thank you for bringing Ojibwe into this physical space with us. When that happens, I think it reconnects the land to language, and it affirms that we're still part of this place, right, that has since been renamed and colonized. And if you're wondering, like, oh, this was fun, I'd like to do more, there is an upcoming round dance at the University of Michigan. This is the first round dance that the university will have held. And you'll see it has the traditional name of Ann Arbor on the poster, Gabigoshkaning, the place of the pummeling, which is a great name for drum, a drum-oriented event. And then the Detroit Institute of Art, there is an exhibit called Contemporary Anishinaabe Art, a Continuation. We had the opportunity to sing at the public opening. It features, I think, 60-some artists, and it's the first major Native American exhibit that the DIA has done in 30 years. And they promise not to let 30 more go by before they do another one. But it's quite beautiful, so if you get a chance, go check it out. And again, don't forget to check out UMA before November, is it November 14th or 15th? November 14th, I think, is the closing day of the exhibit there. So thinking about the round dance, right? And the Gabigoshkaning round dance. A round dance has a traditional ceremony part of it. It's something that takes place in the fall harvest season. And we have to remember our ancestors. but it also has really fun singing and dancing and food. So a good thing is all are welcome to come check it out. They're fun for families, for anybody who enjoys dancing. Good place to find a date maybe. But we're going to sing a round dance style song for you guys. And some of our folks, if anybody would like to try the round dance side step, are going to lead you through that. So you'll have an opportunity to dance if you're so inclined. We'll see how many people who are willing to dance out there. But after the dance is over, we will have our Q&A period for anybody who wants to ask a question. So if you want to come back to chairs to ask a question, or if you just want to dance your way out to some books, that's up to you.
Okay.
Here comes our lead dancers. Brings us a lot of joy to have seen everybody dancing today, and to hear you sing Gidji Gidji Ganeshi and Shkakamikwe and all those things. And maybe we'll see you at the round dance. But I do want to offer an opportunity, if anybody has questions, to ask those today. Yes.
Can I bring the mic? Can I bring the mic to you? Or thank you.
The first question is how many different tribes still are active in Michigan? And the second question is, in comparison to Western languages, how hard is it to learn the Ojibwe language? Thank you.
Those are two really good questions. For the first question, how many tribes are in Michigan? Michigan shares the land with 12 federally recognized tribes and 3 state-recognized tribes that are seeking federal recognition who have not been recognized yet. So there's a pretty large number of tribes here in Michigan. The second part of your question about the difficulty to learn compared to Western languages, I'm going to assume it's probably similar, but I can't say for sure. I think what's really hard for English speakers is that the language is very verb-based, so maybe 70% verbs, 30% nouns. And English speakers are really like my house, my dog, your cat, like we like to learn nouns, right? And in Ojibwe and other indigenous languages, you're building phrases and you're building actions. It's just like a harder shift to make. But I think we have a really accessible orthography, like the way that we write. The words are as they sound. It's not tricky. The way that English is tricky with things look like they might sound one way and then don't sound that way.
Another question?
I just wanted to, Jasmine's art, is there a place where we can find that?
She does have an Instagram account now. Art by Jasmine, I think is the name of it. She says with confidence.
And just one more time, how do you say thank you?
Miigwech.
Miigwech to all of you for sharing today. Thank you.
Miigwech for being here.
It's a silly question. I just wanted to ask about the word for chickadee. Is it based on the sound the chickadee makes, or does it mean something else?
It's based on the sound the bird makes. And I think it's interesting to note that the word for chickadee in a lot of indigenous languages, they all sound like the chickadee, but they're all written a little bit differently, which kind of tells us something about the language that we bring to sounds out in the world. But Gijigijiginishi is meant to, I don't know if there's a linguistic term for a word that sounds like the thing, but owl also is go-go-go-o. Apparently, we like to name things how they sound.
Hi, so if you found out later in life that you were Indigenous, how would you become more involved if you lived in this area?
I think most folks would say that you should find the community where you're from, right? Because their language and culture is so unique every place. If you're in a city environment, which we are in Ann Arbor, you could still often find pockets of community of places. But that would be like the first step that I would take is try to find which tribal nation your ancestry is from.
Thank you so much for coming here. I'm curious about, because the language is kind of under threat from disappearing, and it sounds like you also said earlier that Potawatomi, that the kind of language they speak is different from what Ojibwe speak, and that there might be different dialects of it. Do you feel like it's being almost standardized because you're trying to teach a lot of people and maybe have people speak the language similarly, so that you have a larger community speaking the same language? Is there a concern like dialects might be lost in that way, or is that something that people are considering still?
I feel like when I started trying to learn the language in 2006, nobody talked about dialects, and I didn't know how different Potawatomi had become from Ojibwe. The reason for that, by the way, is because the Potawatomi were removed to Oklahoma and Kansas, and the Ojibwe stayed here in Michigan. In recent years, there's a lot more talk about dialect and Western Ojibwe and Eastern Ojibwe and so forth, and I think the answer to that is their communities are going to be like revitalizing the language in their place. And so you'll see distinctions between like Red Lake Ojibwe, Sioux Tribe Ojibwe, Anishinaabemowin First Nation Ojibwe, and those will be really important, right? Because things are, like the months, the names of the months vary by community based on the weather, right? So what might be Sugarbush April month here might be different in northern Minnesota. I don't know if going forward, if every single dialect will make it, like who can say, but I think there's a lot more talk about those things and recognition of them and transparency, and so I'm hopeful about that.
Thank you. I'm wondering about the drums and the common materials that your drums are made out of.
That's a fun question. I don't think we've been asked that one before. So most Ojibwe drums, or drums that are made in Ojibwe country, I should say, are made from elk or moose, but a lot of buffalo hide is often used for drums, right? Because it's just like a thicker hide, so it's going to give you a deeper sound. And you don't want the hide to like wear so thin that it's going to break. So you don't, for instance, often don't use deer hide for a drum. And then we use maple tree. Maple is often used as the rim, like the wood part of the frame. We had a fun opportunity to make drums together earlier this year. And it's, well, I don't want to say it's not as easy as it looks, because I guess I never thought it looked easy, but it's definitely not as easy as you would think to make one that sounds good.
Where are the men? Where are the boys? Are there opportunities for them to practice your culture?
There is. This, in Ojibwe culture, there's different stories about this, so I don't want to say this is the correct story. But women can create life within our bodies, right? We can create a heartbeat, and men cannot. And so the drum was gifted by Ojibwe women to Ojibwe men, the big drum that you hear at the powwows, and only men generally sit at those drums. There are variations or exceptions to that rule, but women stand behind men and kind of keep watch over them at the big drums. So what's happened is women sing with hand drum groups. And this is the way that we can drum, or that's accessible to us. And you wouldn't mix the two. So you wouldn't have men and women generally in a hand drum group together. But there are men who are involved with our language nest activities, but they would be drumming in a different place than us.
I have a question. As far as learning the language, I saw there was a professor who taught here at U of M. Is that correct?
Well, I think we have a few.
A few? Yeah. So, do you welcome?
Oh, you mean the Ojibwe teacher?
Teacher. Do you welcome anyone to learn the language, or is there a preference that they are, a descendant of Ojibwe, or is it?
I don't think that class has reached max enrollment where it needed to turn anybody away or ever make those kinds of decisions. Okay. I think anybody could take that class.
Right.
Well, so thank you also for coming. And I'm curious about how, perhaps you could tell me more about the names that you have, maybe historically. Are they given at birth and then they change later on? Or I have ideas and stories in my head, but I'm curious what it is. Thank you.
I'm sure every culture is different, and there's probably variations in Ojibwe communities, but generally speaking, you'd be given a name at birth. But in your lifetime as an Ojibwe person, you might receive many names, or not many names, multiple names, right? So you could ask for a name from somebody, from an elder, and they would become your namesake. You might have done something special in your lifetime or be thought of in a certain way, and a community will sort of name you, and then that community is your namesake. But there isn't this idea of you were born with one name, and it's your name forever.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. And if we could one more time, before we thank them, I just want to mention 2 programs. We have Ming the Magician here next Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. And we have an Ojibwe story time on November 16th at 10:30 at our Traverwood branch. So with Ariel right back here.
Ariel in our group there.
Yes.
Do you want to say Ani, Ariel?
Ani. So if you're interested in more, want to bring your kids, there's another opportunity for you. So please help me in thanking all of our singers and presenters today. It was a fantastic program, and thank you so much for sharing your talents and your culture with us.